Back shortly, I'll be taking you to the town hall where Trevor Mbija will be talking to Public Defender Okia Omtata, an advocate of the High Court, Kakai Kissinger, and LSK Vice Chair Harriet Chigai, plus their audience there. Stay tuned for that. But here's some quick facts for you from a 2014 EACC survey on waiting on justice. Now, the time to conclude court cases, from those who were polled, these were the numbers they gave. 25% said their court cases were under a year. 29% said between 1 year to 2 years. 35% were looking at between 2 to about 4 years, and 11% of those who were polled said their court cases took at least 40 months. We're heading past 4 years now, possibly to 5 as well. That's one challenge there. But what are the constraints to accessing justice for those who were asked that question? Many of them said, 60% of them said the court process simply took too long. Meanwhile, in another survey, 54% said postponement of hearing. For 54% of them, that was their biggest issue. 38% said the courts was simply too far. When you look at a rural setting, think about the implications of that. While 29% said access to legal aid, especially attorneys, was simply too costly. That was a constraint for them when it came to accessing justice. And finally, issues of misconduct in the judicial sector. These were the issues that were raised by those who were polled. 22% were concerned about bribery within the judicial sector. 19% simple laxity in the, by judicial workers. 17% felt that favoritism or nepotism contributed to misconduct in the judicial sector, while 14% were concerned about abuse of power by those who have it in the judicial system. Okay, now I want to take you to a bit of your feedback. You've been texting in. 22422 is our SMS line, and the hashtag is Monday Report. Spicer Kenya says, my view, and we asked this question, we asked him, do you think court cases should be heard and determined in a fixed time, just like when CJ Maraga announced that election petitions will be heard and determined in a fixed period of time? And this is what some of you had to say. This person rather says, my view is court cases should be given a fixed time frame of 3 months at most. Some cases last a lifetime, and it said, justice delayed is justice denied. The next tweet here, Bon Nalugala says, yes, an extension of such time needs to be approved by the Chief Justice. So they say we should have fixed times when cases should be heard and determined. Linda Louise says, yes, I believe all cases should have a fixed timeline based on existing classification, or better yet, introduce a new strategy. Judges should also be held accountable for this. His story of cases kwenda 10+ years is injustice in itself. Let me take two more. Waitito Joel says, it's practically and technically hard, but ethically possible. I think even before the ODPP initiates a court case, he has all the relevant materials. Why should it take decades? Some cases may take longer than others, but 5 years in corridors of court, apana. Waitito Joel says no. And last but not least, Kana Kangai says nope. Depends on the nature of court cases. You cannot have fixed timelines for when cases can be heard and determined. That's a discussion that will be happening at our town hall. You see in the issues that Kenyans are facing, the discussion to sort of understand what some of those issues are will be happening right now at our town hall session, moderated by Trevor Mbija and Mashirima Kapombe. Trevor, over to you.
Na Mwaihiga, hilo ndio swali ambalo wengi wanajiuliza kuhusiana na jinsi baadhi ya kesi huchukua muda mrefu. Visa vikiwa kama kile kisa kimoja cha walimu waliostaafu mwaka wa 1997 hadi wa leo wanaidai serikali ama tuseme ni tume ya huduma za walimu TSC marupurupu na mishahara marupurupu ya uzeeni takriban shilingi bilioni zaidi ya 42.3. Na sio kisa hicho peke yake. Kuna pia kile kisa cha wazazi wa wanafunzi wachanguli waliofariki mwaka wa 2001 katika kisa cha moto kwenye bweni. Watakuwa hapa kutueleza jinsi harakati za kutafuta haki zaidi ya miaka 15 ilikuwaje. Lakini kwanza nataka kumpatia Trevor nafasi aweze kutueleza wageni wa leo ni kina nani.
Well, asante sana Mashirima Kapombe, live from the Simba Corpus Spire Center. The question we asked you earlier on today is should all court cases be heard and determined within fixed timelines, just like election petitions? We'll read some of your views coming through on 224222 at Citizen TV Kenya, Trevor Mbija, at M Kapombe, at Waiga Mwaura. Use the hashtag Monday Report and also tell us your views on what has been going on in the corridors of justice. But let me introduce my guest real quick, beginning from my immediate left. Thank you so much for making time. Harriet Chigai, she's the Vice President, Law Society of Kenya. Asante for coming in. Followed by Kakai Kissinger, an advocate and also a former acting registrar of the judiciary. Asante sana for coming in. And last but not least, a man who's very familiar with the corridors of justice, Okia Omtata, human rights activist. He recently won a case of 843 acres of government land in Busia. 8 years later, he'll tell us how he's navigated the systems of the judicial service system. But for now, back to you, Mashirima.
Naam, Trevor, nataka kuanza na hawa wazazi wa Changuli ambao wamekuwepo nasi hivi sasa. Kesi yao ilichukua takriban miaka 15, manake ule uamuzi wa mahakama wa kuwapa fidia ya zaidi ya shilingi milioni 40 ilitolewa mwaka wa 2015, lakini hadi wa leo pesa hizo za fidia hazijaingia kwenye akaunti zao. Labda nianze na mama mmoja hapa, tayari uko na kinasa sauti. Hebu tueleze katika hii miaka 15 imekuwaje kutafuta haki hiyo miaka 15 kabla uamuzi wa fidia utolewe?
My name is Telamaris Ndonge. I am a victim of injustice. Back in the year 2001, March 25th, a dormitory in Machakos County from a school known as Changoli Memorial High School was lynched by notorious boys. My son, together with other 66 boys, were banned beyond recognition. He was amongst them. From that time, it is now 18 years, and we have been seeking for justice, and it has not prevailed.
Tueleze tu kidogo katika huo muda kabla ya mwaka 2015, wakati ambapo Jaji Sergon alipotoa uamuzi kuampewe fidia ya takriban milioni 40.9. Hizo harakati zilikuwaje mkienda mahakamani? Nini ambacho kilifanya kesi ichukue muda wote huo?
We had been going to the court year in, year out. In the year 2016 March, the case was determined and we won the case. From that time, most of their parents have been stressed. A lot of them have died due to psychological effects. Others have died due to sicknesses, probably caused by the death of our children. Losing a child is it's a very difficult task. We had sleepless nights thinking of what else we could do.
Stella Maris, wakati wote wewe ulikuwa unakwenda mahakamani wakati ambapo kulikuwa na vikao?
I had been going to the courts for the hearings. And when the case was determined, we knew that we will be compensated immediately, but it has taken about 5 years.
Wacha nimpatie nafasi mzazi mwingine. Anza kutuambia jina lako kamili kisha utueleze wewe ni kwa nini hukuwa unaenda mahakamani wakati ambapo kesi hiyo ya Changuli ilikuwa inaendelea?
Mimi jina langu naitwa Joyce Wayua. Mimi ni mzazi mmoja wa hao watoto. Mimi sikukuwa nikienda kotini juu hiyo kitu ilinifanya nikuwe mgonjwa. Na nikienda kotini ninaweza kuwa ninakumbuka mambo mingi. Mimi ndugu yangu ndio alikuwa anaenda kwenye hiyo kesi. Juu tangu hiyo wakati mimi nilikonjeka fresh mpaka ya leo.
Wacha tuongee na mzee hapa, Bwana Philip Musyoki. Wakati ambapo mahakama iliamua kuwa mlipwe fidia, ulihisi vipi? Uliona kama huu ndio mwisho, kuwa sasa unaweza kuendelea na maisha?
Wakati kesi iliisha mwezi ya 3 mwaka wa 2016 na tukasikia sasa tumelipwa, mimi nilikaa chini na nikafikiria, nikaona serikali imejaribu, kwa sababu hiyo kesi ilikaa sana kuanzia mwaka wa 2001 mpaka mwaka wa 2015, na hiyo miaka ni mingi sana. Na mimi nilikuwa naenda kotini wakati kesi inakuwa kotini, kwenda kusikiliza tu. Nikaendelea mpaka nikaanza kusikia mwili yangu ikipandrika mpaka nikawacha kwenda kotini. Na tena pipi yangu akanipea diabetic na blood pressure. Na tukiendelea hivi hata hiyo blood pressure ikanishika. Hata waleo naendelea na kutumia dawa. Hata saa hii nasugua. Sasa niliona walijaribu lakini kuchelewa, hata waleo tu kupata hiyo pesa. Wakati serikali ilitangaza imelipa sisi, tulikuwa tukifikiri tutalipwa haraka haraka, lakini tukienda kuuliza tunaelezwa tungoje mpaka waleo. Saiti sasa kama miaka 3 na miezi 9 kama juu tangu serikali ilitangaza tulipwe.
Trevor, labda wageni wako wanaweza kutueleza kama inastahili kwa watu ambao wamepitia kisa kama hiki kungojea miaka hii yote kupata haki.
Yeah. Harriet, I'd like you to respond to that. These are parents, the case started in 2001, ended in 2015. 14 years down the line, they got a ruling. 4 years down the line, they've not been compensated. What options do they have? Where do they go from here?
Thank you very much. First, I wish to apologize to these parents. It is very painful to lose a child, and especially in the manner in which they did lost their children. It's also painful for the parents of the children who participated in that heinous activity. But what I hear is that the compensation that was awarded to them has actually not been released, and I want to believe this is on the government side. There are options, and one of the key options, I want to believe you have your advocate on record, and the orders need to be extracted. And it's saddening that we are actually seated here hearing this story, because recently there was actually a presidential order that any payments that are pending in terms of service delivery from the government side should be delivered. And the government should actually lead by example. And so the parents, they do have an option to follow this money through the correct channels. And I want to believe the first office that needs to be addressed on this matter is actually the Office of the Attorney General. If that has not been done, it then needs to be done as soon as practically possible.
Okay, there's still another response there?
Kwa hizo fedha ambazo walikuwa wanatarajia zimetolewa na serikali, lakini bado hazijafika katika akaunti zao. Hilary, labda unaweza kutueleza ni nini ambacho kimefanya pesa mnaambiwa zimeachiliwa lakini bado hazijafika katika akaunti zenu?
Thank you so much. My name is Hilary Kitata. I'm actually the team leader of the 67 parents. When we lost our children, we formed a group and they appointed me as their chairman. So we have been pursuing justice through all corners. I'm here to say that we were paid this money last July 8th, to be exact, around 6:59 a.m. in the morning. Thereafter, we were told that the money has been sent to the Solicitor General, where it was going to be processed such that it can go to parents' accounts. But since then, 2 months have elapsed, but the money has not been debited in our account. We have been making trips every now and then with my committee members. Once we go to the offices, we are told, come tomorrow. So-and-so is not in. Wait, come tomorrow. And so it has become like, it's a saga, I would say, whereby you are just being tossed around. You don't know where to go.
All right.
And if you visit an office, they give you a hard stare. It's like you are committing a crime to go to ask for what is yours. So I hereby request the powers that be to see to it that this money is remitted immediately, because most of the parents, in fact, when this thing started, 2001, most parents have really died. Around about 15 parents are not there as we talk. They have passed on due to diseases, sicknesses related to such. You have heard my colleagues talking about the same thing. So in fact, when this money was paid out, we thought it would be given out immediately so that parents can start buying medicines. And in any case, this is not really a payment, as it were. This is just something to wipe parents' tears so that we can put this matter to rest.
How far can the LSK go with pushing this? Because he says it's at the Solicitor General's office now.
I think if it's at the Solicitor's General office, and it has been clarified that the money is there, I don't see why it's being held. And on our side, as LSK, we can make the follow-up on the same, and just to check how far that payment is.
So you're making a commitment here that you will follow that up as the Law Society of Kenya.
Yeah.
Kakai, I'd like to hear from you. You've been the registrar, you've been an acting registrar at the judiciary. What happens that such cases delay so long? What is the missing link here? What don't we understand?
The nature of our legal practice or legal system is that there's justice. But the problem is that the wheels of justice grind very slowly and over a period of time. And this has been compounded by the fact that it has been happening for many years, despite the fact that we have now an elaborate constitution that is supposed to provide for mechanisms and means of ensuring that the legal justice or the wheels of justice actually are faster. It's unfortunate that that's a case that took almost 11 years, if I'm not wrong, or 15 years to go through. But that is just how the legal processes and practice is. And you realize that one of the challenges they've actually had is the final stages of what we call in law execution, whereby the judge has done their part, although they took long, they have given you judgment. But after you get a judgment, you are supposed to do what we call execution. Now, that seems to be where the challenge is, and in this particular case, the challenge is with the government, because executing money from government is not a walk in the path. So it brings in two things. One is the political aspect and the legal aspect. In their case, for example, they should also try to use the political aspect by using their leaders, your area MP or governor or whoever, to push the agenda for you to be paid. But also on the other hand, just like my colleague Harriet has said, there are those mechanisms in terms of legal that you are supposed to push or follow with the Office of the Attorney General. Now, probably they got the judgment, the award has been given, but the Attorney General, the Office of the Attorney General doesn't have money because they did not budget this financial year. Okay. So they might be buying time to budget for the next financial year. Okay. So those are the challenges that exist.
Okay, you've been at the corridors of justice for a while. Is it a lack of, is it complacency? Is it a lack of human resources? Is it corruption? What are the loopholes you've seen there?
I think it's case by case. You cannot give a generalized statement like the judiciary is this way, the judiciary is that way. I think it's on a case-by-case basis, and I don't have the particulars of this case, but I think given the weighty issues involved, because so many of our children were killed in that fire, I think it was not an easy thing even for the investigators, for the lawyers who are in the court, for the judges. It may be a matter that required the due diligence it required, and maybe it took a bit of time. Yeah. And for me, what's important, as Kakai has said, the judicial system has discharged its functions and given some
a verdict.
Something to indemnify, maybe not so much to compensate, because you cannot compensate life. Something with which the parents can wipe their tears. It's not unfortunate that there's that delay, and I don't think there's any excuse for that delay. We always have supplementary budgets in this country.
Yeah.
What I know is that maybe there's nothing for these officials to take home, because I have seen situations whereby, I'll give you an example of the contentious Ruaraka land, where the Attorney General made a deal with these characters in court. 1 billion awarded 2.8 billion, and within days 1.5 billion was paid out. So it is just that there's this habit in the civil service to be self-serving. They want, if there's nothing in it for them, it doesn't move, it doesn't matter. They might even find that these poor parents will be pushed to part with something to get their cut, or the money has come out, somebody has put on an income earning account, and they're earning the interest. And yet the poor parents who are given something by the judicial system to wipe their tears with, not so much, I wouldn't call it compensation because you can't compensate a human being, are here being delayed and denied their rights, and as we say. So I think this is a matter that the AG should take upon himself to see that by tomorrow it's resolved.
Okay.
I don't see why it's not be resolved. Especially when he says that the money was released by the exchequer, why should the money still be sitting with the Solicitor General unless he's stealing it by putting it on some account where he can earn some interest?
Do you agree with that view, Harriet, before I go to Mashirima? Because there's even an EACC survey in 2014 said that the court processes take too long at 60%. Is it graft related?
Well, we cannot rule out corruption in all these matters. We'll be turning our neck the other side if we say we are operating in a corruption-free environment. But again, this is one of the many cases that I'm sure are currently pending. And it's now coming out now, you know, and it's important that it has come out now so that we can put in place measures to ensure that even those others which are currently pending before the Solicitor General actually action or taken care of. And I must say again, it's quite unfortunate if corruption is what is standing between the parents of these particular incidents and justice, then we go back to where we are in terms of our moral fabric. And then that's when we can say our moral fabric is completely tainted. And what next? What can we do, we as the common mwananchi, we as the persons charged with responsibility to ensure that some of these issues don't keep rolling out and don't keep repeating itself? What then can we do to stitch back our moral fabric? And if that's the case, then it's quite unfortunate.
All right. Mashirima?
Sasa kuna wale ambao wako na kesi kama hizo, lakini kuna wengine ambao walipelekwa mahakamani wakiwa bila hatia. Nataka sasa kumpatia nafasi Wilson Kinyua aweze kutueleza kesi yake ilikuwaje hadi akajipata korokoroni kwa muda wa miaka 19. Wilson.
That one is a bit big story actually to tell, but I don't want to, I should not go to those details. The point is, and today we are confining ourselves to the delayment of justice. And before I talk to about the bit that affect me, let me make this a statement that today I believe our Constitution puts the judiciary in a higher pedestal than it used to be. Today, a judiciary should not just be an impartial arbiter, but should also be a facilitator of justice. And therefore, in my case, where I represented 12 inmates in the court, and we won that case, because of its impact, so that it was supposed to affect 8,000 inmates, the judiciary fell short of making a declaration that all the inmates should go back to court for resentencing. And what happened, it gave the Attorney General a window to deliberate with other stakeholders and suggest the appropriate mechanism of resentencing and availing remedy to all those inmates in similar circumstances with myself and the 12 others that I had represented. But my request is this.
Kwa kifupi Wilson, ili watu waweze kuelewa unazungumzia nini, tueleze hii kesi ambayo unasema inafanana na yako, ilikuwa inahusu nini haswa?
This was a case of it was a case of robbery, murder, and attempted robbery. All those cases where capital offense is a straitjacket. I mean, you are sentenced to death upon conviction. And I had stayed in prison for 21 years. My case has taken 21 years to conclude. Since 1998 up to this year, that is when I was released, when I resubmitted my case back to court. The first time I was not represented, but after studying law inside prison and becoming a lawyer, so I became a lawyer to myself, and I represented myself and 12 other inmates, and that is when I won that case, and I was released this year. I was making this point, Trevor, and that we asked the court when they made a declaration, similar to what they made to the Changuri victims, that we have made that declaration. Then we requested the court not to release that matter until the logical conclusion of the case, when all the petitioners get their remedy. And therefore, the court gave Attorney General 12 months within which it must file that report with the court. So similarly, I believe, in such circumstances, the court has a duty not to release the matter until it ensures that that money has been deposited in the petitioner's account. That is the way to go in our constitution. It is not the issue of moral. Now we revert politically to the government and all that. The court must handle the process and ensure that the logical conclusion of the matter is that the petitioners get their right.
So in this case, you believe it's the court that is failing,
exactly.
Despite having given a verdict.
The court has a part to play.
Despite having given a verdict, they still should have followed.
Yeah, actually not declaring themselves, that they have already concluded the matter, and there are other people to facilitate that. Yeah. The court must ensure that the payment of the money has actually been deposited to the petition, because that is what they went court for. Okay, so you have spent 21 years in prison and finally you got out. Yes.
What were the loopholes you saw in the legal system?
There are so many, actually. The derailment is occasioned by so many challenges.
Yeah.
Ranging from corruption itself, and corruption is both sides.
Yeah.
Corruption may come from the defendant or the complainant. If complainant is well oiled with money and he sees a case that is hopeless and he wants you to suffer in prison, he has a way of circumventing justice, either by getting the file misplaced, deliberately, so that during the period through which the investigation should go and all that is the time that you're supposed to suffer in prison. The defendant may as well cause the files to disappear if he sees a strong case, and therefore you start blaming the judiciary. So either side, but again, there is investigation so that we don't have a blanket condemnation or a blanket blame on any person until we zero in on who is actually the culprit of the derailment. We also have the issues of lawyers. Lawyers themselves, we have lawyers acting upon the advice of their clients. They might delay the case. So that something that is out of sight, it's out of mind. They might want, this is a huge case that has public pressure, and so that we are able to circumvent justice, let us delay the matter. All right, so it's the entire system. We have to take a quick break now. Okay, we'll come back and get solutions based on what you've seen and what you think are some of the suggested solutions. But I believe, Mashirima, you should take a break now.
Naam, tutapumzika tu kidogo kisha tutarejea. Naona pia kuna jumbe nyingi ambazo zinaendelea kuingia kwenye mtandao wa Twitter. Tutakuwa pia tunaangazia maswali haya. Usiondoke.